Somewhere out there, right now, there's a tomato plant taller than a grown man, thick as a bush, covered in leaves so lush it looks like it belongs in a magazine. And it's got maybe 6 tomatoes on it. 6. After an entire summer. That plant isn't sick. It isn't cursed. It's just doing exactly what you told it to do, because you never told it to stop growing leaves and start growing fruit. And that one mistake is the reason half the gardens in this country are drowning in green and starving for red. Here's the thing nobody tells you at the garden center. A tomato plant left to its own devices doesn't know its job is to feed you. Its only job, as far as it's concerned, is to survive and spread. So it throws out stem after stem, leaf after leaf, sucker after sucker, all reaching for more sunlight, more real estate, more of itself. And you, standing there with your watering can, look at all that green and think, well, that's a healthy plant. Your neighbors think so too. But healthy looking and productive are two very different things. Every ounce of energy that plant spends growing a new branch is energy it's not spending ripening the tomatoes you actually want. It gets worse. All that dense, tangled foliage traps moisture down at the base of the plant. It blocks airflow. And that's exactly the kind of damp, stagnant environment that early blight and Septoria leaf spot love to move into. You water your plants faithfully all summer, and by August, the lower leaves are yellow, spotted, curling up and dying. And you don't know why, because you did everything right. The old-timers knew something most modern gardeners have forgotten. A tomato plant doesn't need to be big to be generous. It needs to be managed. And managing it doesn't cost you a dime, just a pair of clean scissors and about 10 minutes a week. Let's talk about how to actually do this, because it starts with knowing what kind of tomato you're even growing. This one detail trips up more gardeners than anything else. First, determinate tomatoes. These are your bush varieties. Think Roma, many paste tomatoes, a lot of the ones bred for canning. A determinate plant grows to a set size, stops, sets nearly all of its fruit around the same time, and that's it, one big harvest window. These plants barely need pruning at all, and over-pruning them will actually hurt your yield, not help it. All you do here is look below the very first flower cluster on the main stem. You'll see little shoots growing out of the crook where a leaf branch meets the main stem. Those are called suckers, and we'll get into exactly what those look like in a moment. Below that first flower cluster, remove all the suckers except the strongest one, which you can let grow into a second main stem if you want a slightly bigger plant. Above that first cluster, leave it alone. Let it do its thing. Second, indeterminate tomatoes. These are your vining types: beefsteak, Cherokee purple, most cherry tomatoes, brandywine. These plants will keep growing and setting fruit all season long, right up until frost kills them, and they absolutely require regular pruning, or you'll end up with that jungle we talked about at the start. With indeterminate plants, you choose how many main stems you want, 1, 2, or 3. And then every single week, you remove the new suckers that pop up everywhere else. One main stem gives you the biggest, earliest tomatoes but fewer of them. 3 stems gives you more tomatoes but smaller and later. 2 is the sweet spot most old farmhouse gardeners settled on, and it's a good place for you to start too. Now, how do you actually spot a sucker? Look at your plant. You've got a main stem running up the middle, and leaf branches coming off it at an angle, like the letter Y. A sucker grows right out of that Y, right in the elbow where the stem meets the leaf branch. It starts small and unassuming, but if you leave it, it'll grow into a full second stem with its own flowers, its own leaves, its own suckers, competing with your main plant for every bit of water and nutrients in the soil. Pinch it out early, while it's small, and it comes away with just your fingers. Wait too long, and you'll need pruning shears. The second piece of this puzzle, and one the old Almanac gardeners swore by, is removing your lower leaves. Any leaves touching or close to the soil, take them off, all the way up to the first fruit cluster, once the plant's established. Here's why this works. Soil-borne fungus and disease spores splash up onto those low leaves every time it rains or you water. From there, they climb the plant. Strip those leaves away, and you've cut off their ladder. This one habit alone is credited with keeping generations of tomato patches free from early blight and Septoria leaf spot, long before anybody was spraying chemicals on their vegetables. And timing matters more than people realize. Always prune on a dry morning, never after rain, never in humid, muggy weather. Wet conditions are exactly when fungus and bacteria spread fastest, and an open pruning wound on a damp day is basically an invitation. Use clean shears too. Wipe the blades with a little rubbing alcohol between plants. Your grandmother's generation didn't have fancy fungicides, but they understood something simple. A clean cut, on a dry day, with a clean blade, keeps disease from spreading from one plant to the next. Now here's a trick most people have never even heard of, and it's one of my favorites. Topping. About 3 to 4 weeks before your first expected frost, you go to the very top of your indeterminate plants, and you cut it off. The growing tip, the newest, most tender part. It feels wrong, I know, but that plant was about to spend its last few weeks of the season growing more height, more flowers, more tiny green tomatoes that would never have time to ripen anyway. Once you top it, all that energy gets redirected straight into the fruit that's already on the vine, ripening it faster and bigger before the cold hits. Old-timers use this trick every single fall to make sure nothing went to waste before the frost took the plant for good. And one more thing before we move on. Don't just toss those suckers you've been pinching off all season. Take a healthy one, at least 4 inches long, strip the lower leaves, and stick it in a glass of water on your windowsill. In about a week or two, it'll grow its own roots, and you can plant it right in the garden as a brand new tomato plant, completely free. Your grandparents didn't buy new seedlings every year for a reason. None of this is new information. It's old information that got buried. Before garden centers sold fungicide sprays and miracle tomato feed, this was just how you grew tomatoes if you wanted a real harvest. Farmers passed this down because their whole winter pantry depended on getting it right. And here's the honest truth. Pruning correctly still outperforms most of what's sold to you today, because it deals with the actual cause of poor yields and disease, not just the symptoms. No spray fixes a plant that's shading out its own fruit and choking on its own damp leaves. Only you, with a clean pair of shears, can fix that. So here's what I want you to do. Go take a look at your tomato plants today, right now if you can, and figure out which kind you're growing, determinate or indeterminate. That one piece of knowledge changes everything about how you handle that plant for the rest of the season. Then get in there, pinch those suckers, strip those lower leaves, and if frost is coming in the next month, go ahead and top your plants. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me which method you're trying first, and how many tomatoes you're hoping to see by the end of the season. Your grandmother's garden didn't need a single chemical spray to feed the whole family, and yours doesn't either. If this old wisdom is new to you, there's plenty more where it came from. Subscribe, because next up, I will show you how we make compost that never stinks. Because most folks' pile turns to a sour, slimy, reeking mess that draws flies. And the old people made sweet black earth from the very same scraps with one thing the modern pile is missing. Because a plant that isn't pruned is just growing leaves. A plant that is pruned is growing your dinner.